Right there. Oh, yeah. That's the first part of the bill. So, yeah, one of the better ones we pay as far as things. Actually, good. It's somebody has Steve talking about this week.
Yeah, we go back on the 23rd, classes start college in Charleston.
Oh, man, it's buzz
Ready,
down-
set, go.
buzz it downtown now.
It is. I think they're moving in soon, maybe next week. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a huge turnaround back July to August when the kids with their leases and everybody moves out and shuffles.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well,
That's all the tourists.
Right. Big tourist season.
that's- They're looking for these notes here for. At least they have to use their folder.
I don't even know where my folder is.
Luckily, I committed them to memory, but
Oh, of course. We're in here.
Yeah.
We're gonna need a moment.
Guess we're ready. I'd like to call to order the August 11th, 2022 meeting of the Town of James Island Planning Commission. This meeting has been noticed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. I'm Bill Lyon, Chairman. Deb Bidwell is our Vice Chairman. Cindy Quinn and Mark Mayer. Ed Steers had a fire engagement and he won't be here tonight. Francis Simmons, our planning secretary, is also not here tonight. Here she. Flannery is filling in. Flannery Woods will be filling in for Francis. Kristen Crane, the planning director, is here. Flannery Wood, planner 2. Nikki Trimble, our town administrator, is also here. I think that's it. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the February 10th meeting?
So moved.
Deb,
I'll take it.
if there's any seconds. All in favor?
Bye.
It's unanimous. At this time, we'd like to encourage anyone who'd like to speak during the public comments portion of the meeting. State your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 2 minutes. If we have anybody here.
Maybe in the chat.
Okay. So we will move forward to the staff comments. Nothing. Okay. Proposed amendment to the Town of James Island zoning and land development regulation ordinance. Staff will now give a short review and answer any questions regarding these proposed amendments.
Just, pick them up on the PowerPoint, but probably read them easier in the package. Yeah.
I got them. Do you want to look up?
So you print.
I don't have to do it.
Okay. Thank you.
No, Sharon. So basically, these parking amendment proposals are a response to several applications that we've gotten in, and we just kind of have realized that to meet the parking requirements need to be adjusted in that spot. So that's really all this is. The first one is under civic institutional, the historical sites and libraries. Oh,
Still good.
Yeah. can't move too much.
Just can't wiggle.
So. Currently, historical sites, libraries. Archives and museums are under the same heading, under civic and institutional. It's not represented well in this edited version, but originally they were under the same heading, so they're separated out here. And the historical sites will remain the same with the 300 per square feet. Along with libraries and archives and museums are separated out. And they would have a decreased allowance due to the nature of that use, those uses. So it's possibly like a scenario where the uses of buildings would have less people space and more display area. Therefore, the need for the empty parking spots is not really there in most situations. So that is that. We've had a few. So I guess like there's no questions about that. I'll just go on the daycare, switch on the next page. So we've had a few applications and interest in daycare facilities, and really the parking requirements are a lot in the way it's written right now. And so it's always kind of been an issue when we have these applications come in. And so one parking spot, it would change from one space for 6 students plus 1 per employee to 1 per employee in a single shift plus 1 per 1,000 square feet of classroom. That would give 1 parking spot per employee in a shift, which seems kind of reasonable. And then adding a requirement for square footage should take care of the pickup and drop off situations that would go on. It's a daycare and a preschool are almost always staggered in their drop offs because, you know, the time that they're usually open are 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's not like a school situation where you have a start time and an end time, and then there's an influx of parents at the same exact time. I have a lot of experience in daycare pickup and drop off, so I can speak to that. And there's really not, since those hours are so long, there's not one employee there that's there the entire time. They're also staggered. And so there's not a car line, as I mentioned. And I guess another thought would be that we already have 2 existing daycares right now in the town that are considered non-conforming with their parking at this time. And so this would also make them conforming use of the parking if this was switched.
They would then be conforming?
Conforming,
Okay,
Mhm.
at that point.
right. So it would take them out of their non-conforming status, which is a goal of our offensive plan to get things more conforming status. So that is, actually, there's one more parking amendment. Which, these are all of the parking tables, I just included it so you get an idea of what other uses would require. And so under civic institutional uses. So right now, we already do allow for 50% of the required parking to be off-site if they go by the requirements that are listed. Such as, you know, the close proximity to the use, things like that. So this would be changing that to 75% of the required parking can be off-site, but only for civic and institutional uses. So I think it would aid these uses that would have an abundance amount of parking on site that's not really being utilized to be able to use that off-site for shared. An example is the James Island Public Service. This is a recent example of an issue. The James Island Public Services Fire Station that's on Harborview Road, that currently, it's an older station. It has spaces for one, or two? One. And so, they want to remodel that station in the future. It's not anything on a short-term basis, but with that remodeling, they would have to adhere to our current parking requirements because it would be go through full site plan review, and that would require them to have, I think, at least 10 parking spots for a fire station that can only hold and will only hold no more than five firemen. And so that takes away the space that they could be using for, needed emergency services. In this situation, they have a close by facility that they could be using for parking and just, using it as shared for any type of overflow or employee swaps. And so it just seems silly, to lack of another word, to require that much parking for something that, on site where it could be used off site. And so, another situation is like our, cultural center over there. The amount of parking that we could be utilizing here at ours, facility, people walking over or sharing with the neighbor, that would solve the problem with having too many parking spaces that are sitting there not used. I think that was, so we have one more. So that was it for the parking. The use table amendments, I was trying to think if any of y'all were on planning commission in residential, when this went through a few years ago. I don't remember when that was. Were you gonna get out here? Okay, so it wasn't that long ago. So we separated out. The category used to be restaurant, fast food, including snack bars and non-alcoholic beverage bars. So it was really lumping like a smoothie bar or a coffee shop in with a fast food restaurant. And so that was separated out into its own category, and fast food was added with special exceptions all the way across the board. And I think what happened was, I honestly think it might just been an error that we separated non-alcoholic beverage bars out. We left special exception requirements in there, and it just seems like a smoothie bar and a coffee shop would be more in line with the requirements for a general restaurant, cafeteria, a deli that are allowed in those zoning categories, but with conditions which would be if they happen to serve alcohol, they would need to get a special exception. So this would be changing the special exception requirement for non-alcoholic beverage bars and coffee shops to a conditional use. Instead of a special exception use. I'm thinking of like a smoothie bar, and you need to go to the boards of your deals. It's kind of like an added burden and added expense to something that is more similar to a general restaurant or deli or something like that. So that is all I have for those proposed amendments. Are there any questions?
So what is, go back again on this non-alcoholic beverages.
Mhm.
Is this
changing that, does that give them more, less restrictions?
No.
Just puts them in another category.
It puts them in another category and it takes away the need to go to the board of zoning appeals. to
Special
find-
exception.
Yes, to add to,
So it just simplifies.
it simplifies businesses that are not serving alcohol and are not fast food.
The only thing, the only question I would have is about the traffic issue, like for example, with Starbucks, because that's become a
Right.
real problem.
Yeah, and Starbucks, we would actually consider a fast food restaurant. So we would need to go to the board. of zoning.
So if you had a drive-through,
Well, a drive-through doesn't necessarily make something a fast food restaurant, it's more the nature. In our definition, it's more of the nature of the business, like, is it real quick service? You know, is it already prepared things? Is it paper plates type things? You think about. I use this example like a Panera Bread or Tropical Smoothie Cafe. They have a drive-through, but we wouldn't consider them because it's made to order food, you go, you know, it's different. So that's food in our definition, it's not just on that. I meant drive-throughs, still on that. Fast food restaurant. The Starbucks, like their food is already made, they don't make food, they just kind of heat it up in a microwave. And you get in and you get out, so that would be considered fast food. So they would be.
the biggest problem I would with Starbucks is the coffee. Same thing.
Yes, I would agree.
If we're changing this for a coffee shop, then I guess that would give you a little, so.
Mhm.
Could one, no Bojangles. It would probably set up as a fast food
Fast food,
restaurant,
fast food. Mhm.
okay? But now it's becoming drive-through,
Mhm.
essentially. 9%.
Mhm. So,
So then would that have, court hours, would that have put him in another category, or would that have put in not abiding?
mhm.
Would be okay.
They're still fast food.
That would still be,
Mhm.
that's the, you have to do this category.
Mhm.
That's understood.
Doesn't really affect anything that's already fast food.
Right.
I go to.
And you feel okay with the, something like preschool, little kindergarten places? Not having having to have it much space.
I do. And I take that seriously because I go to one twice a day. So I know the need and, you know, how big they are. I get the square footage requirement and the employees. So the one that wanted, one of the ones that sticks out of my mind, the proposal for the amount of children there would need, or the space that they have would be like over 40 parking spaces. With our current requirements.
That's not realistic.
For a smaller, you know, it wasn't even that large of a facility.
How many historical sites? You think we have, that this would apply to? Have you got an example in mind?
Well, the historical sites is not changing either, so that's just kind of separating historical sites out from museums and archives, because historical sites. To me, seem more of like an outdoor. Situation, like. DNR. Is one and will be one in the future. A more public one in the future with the new plan. But, so historical sites requirements are actually staying the same.
It's under there, you can see when.
Yeah, museums and archives, that makes sense.
For square or, display area based on. What the displays are, and not.
Questions for staff? So I guess
No.
we're gonna vote on this one. So do we have a motion to accept staff recommendations for the changes to Zelda?
So moved.
We have a second. So second. Deb makes a motion and Zinni seconds it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, we'll open the floor to discussion. The daycare center that makes a lot of sense to me. Let's see. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just easing the burden, making sure people don't have to go through unnecessary hurdles to get their business established and making, reasonable, not unreasonable requests.
Lord knows we need more daycare centers out here. So.
And the fire station, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
They're good neighbors with the dentist next door. It's gonna be fine, so.
And they actually have, in that situation, they have property right across Michael Drive.
Oh, exactly,
Owned by the PSP.
even easier.
Okay. The coffee shop and the smoothie bars, I'm not as convinced. I mean, I know we've had big problems with Starbucks. And I don't know if we open ourselves up to, the same kind of problems with a new coffee shop. You go to a lot, I've traveled around the country and you go to some areas and they'll have like a little coffee shop set up in a little, shack kind of thing. And you drive through it and I mean, a lot of people stop and get their coffee there. And I could see how it can become a problem, especially on Folly Road.
Yeah. If it's just coffee. Yeah.
Yeah.
That can be an issue, but it tends to be faster. It's the food and the fancy espresso that slows down the line. But, anytime you serve food, like we've got other cafes and coffee houses on James Island. I couldn't tell you for sure if they're in the town or not, but because they serve food, it's a different,
Fast food.
or even sit down, so restaurant.
uh,
But I get your point. If it's a coffee shack and blocks up traffic because there's not enough space for the line, then you end up with the Starbucks or the Chick-fil-A phenomenon.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. Do you have something more?
No, I was just gonna say it would be treated differently. I think if it was an issue, it might be treated as a restaurant, just like Starbucks is. So I don't see how that would really be an issue. Just if somebody can serve coffee. I can't think of one spot here in town where that's the case.
Right.
Are you aware of a coffee bar here like that?
No, not on James Island.
Yeah. And then if someone was to come here, they're gonna, council and look at it and say, hey, do I classify it as a restaurant or a coffee bar?
Well, that's what we're gonna change. If it's a coffee bar, then we're gonna we'll eliminate the fact that they would have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals for approval for it.
Mhm.
So they could have a drive-through. take it.
Right, and that's okay. I'm just saying the town, when they made the application to the town would know whether to be considered as a coffee bar or a restaurant or whatever,
Right,
based on volume. So I don't see, I think this is a good thing. We finally do think something. You know, that the general public can now probably embrace, you know, instead of throwing up roadblocks, we're eliminating stuff.
Mhm.
So,
okay.
good for us.
Any other comments?
Kind of a question about food trucks. I don't know what our rules are on food trucks. Are they in this?
We treat. Food trucks are actually not in our ordinance, but we treat them kind of.
Okay,
At a case by case basis, you know, where are they gonna be parked, times, owners, permissions, and things like that.
okay, just curious. Thanks.
Mhm.
You say, who gives them permission? The landowner or they?
Yeah, I mean, they have to get a permit, but they also have to get permission from the landowner and a site plan showing. Park and things like that.
So you could disapprove it until they get.
Yeah, if it's not a good idea, it's a bad location, unsafe, parking.
What if somebody wanted to put a coffee shop next to Starbucks, just for argument's sake? And you felt like that wasn't a good idea, could you stop it?
I guess it would depend on why I felt like it was a good idea.
I guess he's asking you technically, could you stop it? Or
If it-
you're gonna just give them
technically,
out, it doesn't look like it's a good.
No, I'm not, I can't say, oh, I have it like that. You know. Go by what the ordinance says.
So if it's a commercial property and they want to put a coffee shop there, there's not much you can do about it.
Well, they have a lot of rules that they would have to follow, and like Mark was saying, if it's something where we felt like it was getting close to being fast food versus a coffee shop, then we would make them go through the board of zoning appeals to get a special exception. It depends on a lot of different things, like, what is their business plan? You know, is it gonna be more high turnover, fast, pre-made things, and they're just trying to have a coffee shop? You know, I'm not, it depends on a lot.
Well, I mean, it's just. The smoothie bars that you go in and you sit down, you know, and there are coffee shops like that, but then there are also these that I'm expecting, you know. Any other comments or questions?
No. Then that would be appropriate. Nothing. Never mind, that didn't get on anything.
Okay, Planner, would you take the role?
And the motion to approve.
Yes. It is still approved.
Okay. Chairman Warren?
I'll go along with it, I'll approve. Yes.
Zane?
I approve.
Mark?
Yes,
So it's unanimous. Okay, I think staff is going to give us a presentation on the resilience elements of the comprehensive plan.
I have the Charleston County one pulled up because I feel like this one would be most similar to whichever one we decide to adopt. We can take this one and make it more town friendly, I guess. This is now a requirement for the comprehensive plan, so we need to get started on it. This, I don't think we should spend a lot of time tonight hashing it out. I kind of was just hoping that, you know, give it a read through. Come back in a couple months and figure something out. It's gonna take a while. Just remember how long it took for the other elements that we recently edited. The good thing is that Charleston County, that Nikki used to work, in the planning department for Charleston County, and she worked very, very hard on the resilience element. And so she, I think basically wrote the resilience element.
Yeah.
And so, I will, defer to her for any questions and comments. But it's definitely something we need to get started on, and it's important. And, also included Folly Beaches in the city of Charleston as well.
In our workshop yesterday,
Oh, yes, I haven't, yeah.
Town of Kiowa is also listed as a, for a reference, but
Hmm.
they seem to be not applicable to St. James Island.
Mhm.
I mean, as far as looking at their information, it just seems to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
Yep.
While the beach had a lot of small problems that seem like more applied to them.
Mhm.
We have Barrier Island versus
Uh,
us. Those outer barrier islands like Kiowa and Folly are definitely going to experience some challenges that our island doesn't
Mhm.
usually experience.
But it looks to me like, when I read over this, it raises questions, but doesn't always give solutions.
So the setup of how the county does their comprehensive plan is they do an inventory, so you'll see the different sections, which first state law.
Right.
So you're really just documenting what the conditions are, what brought about the need to have this element added. Of course, since it's countywide, it is taking in a lot of different factors that may not be applicable all to James Island. Like you said, with barrier islands, unincorporated Charleston County does not extend to any beachfront property. So that's where the hours might be a little more similar. But I think it would give us a good foundation of kind of where to start, and then kind of chisel down and put in on more specific issues that we see on the island. And then at the end, which is my favorite part, with the recommendations of, now we've documented what we have, where we are, and how we got here. So here's some steps that we can move forward in order to make them better. So they are really, kind of high level dreams, I guess you could say. And these are all developed by, I think our committee is like 26 people. So we had a representative from every jurisdiction. We had somebody from the Builders Association, from the Realtor Association, Coastal Conservation League, some conservationists. So we really tried to kind of get feedback from all of these different players that are all very concerned about flooding in our area. So this is kind of their laundry list. So here's everything that I think we can, kind of chip away at. Some of them are a lot easier than others. Some are very long term, so they could be many years. But just kind of a starting point of a direction to take next steps through other ordinances and that sort of thing.
This could take a lot of man hours, shouldn't it?
We worked on this one for 9 months. And then I think it took a couple of months to get through planning commission and council. And then it was actually voted on, the last meeting they had before COVID started. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad this got through, but, yeah, it's a lot of work.
Do you remember? I remember one thing in there, it said let's see, the sea would rise 3 feet in the next 50 years,
Yep.
but it only rose, what, quarter inch a year for the past so many years.
Yeah, it's rising faster now than it used to.
And
That's correct.
Attributed to,
Climate change, global warming.
so I'll have a motion for property.
It won't be long till you paddle right out of my yard.
I do have a question about, you know, you've had a lot of people involved with it. And obviously lawyers have seen it as well, correct?
Yep.
So they don't see an issue. I mean, I'm just throwing this out here. If you go to a contractor or builder and you prohibit a piece of the land that he has, it's not in a flood zone. What are the determining factors of not filling in that piece of land? I mean, does this not open up for maybe some lawsuits and stuff?
The floodplain management program can designate really whatever they want, so that's where it's tied into that community rating system, score, which reduces your flood insurance bill. So, yeah, they can implement higher regulatory standards, and that would be done through a flood ordinance.
Okay, so hence lawsuits start when that happens.
You just have to use alternative methods instead of building. You can still build, you just can't build the land and cause issues to reimburse.
Yeah, I just think in the future that way, as a former builder in Seattle, that's gonna be a big deal,
Right,
real big deal, and it's gonna, you know, it's gonna impact the,
so
county.
specifically with that would actually be somebody straight in the county, even if we put it in hours, because they manage our floodplain management program.
so it's okay if they sue the county.
I mean, if they want to, I guess. But from what I've heard, you know, there hasn't really been any pushback. Like I said, the Builders Association was a part of it, and they, you know, they were out there and saw where these issues, you know, maybe some low-hanging fruit of, okay, maybe this is a small step that we could do on individual properties to kind of reduce the overall impact that new construction has on existing areas.
Yes.
Yeah,
I just see that as what I used to be, which was a
Right.
builder. That's a big deal. Many lawsuits happen in Seattle over that issue right there.
because you weren't allowed to build and build,
Yeah.
but you're still allowed to build.
Well, every situation was different, so you had to look at it, but at times it just seemed to be arbitrary. And, well, it wasn't me, it was somebody over here in the planning department, or it was somebody over here, you know, that needed to issue a permit, or we're gonna hold it up now for, you know, not give you a permit for 10, 11 months, 12 months, something like that. So it got to be a big issue in Seattle. So I would expect it, even though, I mean, I just see that as a roadblock. Or a potential.
Right.
Problem.
Now, also remember, these are just recommendations, so this is not an ordinance, and it's not directing, it's recommendations or things that can be pursued. So
Oh, I got you. Okay.
It's not directly prohibiting it.
Okay, that's good. Okay.
So
I
what,
forgot, that was a big verification that I kind of had to make throughout the whole process.
so what,
A step, but it's not the ordinance.
Right,
Well, you know, people read this and take it, they're gonna run with
Right.
it.
definitely.
so what we see up here is what you working on for the city of Charleston.
Yeah.
Charleston County,
Charleston County.
Mhm. unincorporated. Is what this specific document applies to.
So if we sort of go along with that, we can buggy ride.
Well, I mean, there's some really good ideas, from some, you know, well-informed people that are very familiar with what they are, I guess not necessarily familiar, but they have their opinions about what they think could help the situation, and so it may not be right or perfect or true, but it's the central location where all of these ideas can kind of be on paper and then vetted through the council process.
I think of John's Island,
Mm-hmm.
where you go down one day and it's small. You go down there 2 weeks later, another mountain. And you, and I wonder now, where's all that?
Right. We should ask the city council.
No doubt.
I mean, that's something. you
Yeah,
can hear
it's a
about it,
huge
short
issue.
time.
Yeah,
Really,
that's
that's
where the
big.
jurisdictional boundaries get kind of clearly defined. We see different practices.
Mhm.
So the bottom line is you start working on this project here and put it in the comprehensive plan. We also have to review the comprehensive plan, is it the 10-year?
No, that'll be
Different.
sooner than later, but, we probably have about 7 more years. Do the 10-year rewrite.
I had a question for you. I love that you've got such a diverse array of input and voices around the discussion and decision-making table. And I was curious if you had any indigenous people or their representatives in your discussion.
Yes, so reaching out to what the county describes as settling communities, and including them, in our public hearings and our public meetings. And having them, kind of at the table is very important. So we also, work closely with the Historic Preservation Commission.
Good.
Because it's all, kind of intertwined. Ms. Johnson, the councilwoman, that represents a lot of these communities. She was very involved, kind of through this whole process to make sure that, she gave me a conduit for questions that maybe some of her constituents had. And then ask us questions, how did you represent this or that? And is this something that would cause more of a financial burden on some folks than others? And where could there be situations where you could vary from what the requirements are if it is too much of an impact? So I think that was all very much so in everybody's mind kind of throughout the process.
Great, thank you. And thanks for your hard work on that and for sharing.
It is.
Okay, well, we're not gonna take a vote on this tonight. We will, study it in the future. I don't have any comments. Any comments from the commissioners?
I'm excited about this. This is my specialty. I'm a biomimic, and resiliency and regenerative design is my specialty. So
Ah,
bring it on. I'm excited.
well, good.
Yeah.
Exciting. Okay, our next meeting will be on September 8th. I think we will have a meeting that day. If there are no other comments or business, we'll adjourn.
Somebody put a lot of work into that.
Yeah, no worries.
Falling into.
So you have how many people involved? 20,
26.
26. Wow.
The huge group.
Full-time employee.
No, they were all from, it was just me and another person, that were, but, everybody was in the community were like, I'll go to the